I didn't know she was in Tampa this weekend.
How's Tampa treating you so far?
Oh, I love it. Y'all are great. Thank you so much.
We have a Q&A mic set up right here. I'm gonna start things off, get us rolling, but I want to make sure that we have as many audience questions as we get to. There are only 2 of you up there so far. You can do better than this. I'm gonna dare you.
Man, guys.
Come on, guys. Come on. I'm on stage with her. If you think you're nervous, I mean, I'm on stage with a friggin' Terminator. All right. So we saw in the video there. It starts in with some of your balletic movement that you're so well known for as a great ballerina of some renown. That's something that I love so much just about the way that your characters move. They move with such precision and intention. Even it's not the same thing every time. You don't move the same way in the Terminator show as you do on Firefly and anything that you do.
Thank you.
How far back did your ballet training go? I mean, were you doing ballet from just this high?
Since I was 5. Yeah, when I started, I got serious pretty quickly. I think it really suited me because I was rather shy. Actually, my grandpa has this video of me that he took. My grandfather was always he always had the cutting edge camcorder or the cutting edge camera, so I was always a willing subject, but my first video is just me bowing over and over again and not smiling. I was very serious. It was like, oh, you like it? And I just kept going, and he kept filming. Compelling stuff. So anyway, yeah, I was pretty shy, but I loved being noticed. So ballet worked for me because, I didn't actually have to, really connect, but I felt like I was being watched, and it felt really good. So from a very young age, I started and I got serious right away, and was actually homeschooled so that I could dance during the day, and then I started teaching as well. I also cleaned pools and a babysat, of course. And then it wasn't until until I booked Firefly that I stopped dancing full time. That's what I was doing when I first moved to LA. I was still dancing professionally, and then I met Joss.
Now, I'm a little bit of a ballet nerd, so if you'll indulge me for a moment to be selfish, do you have some favorite ballets that you performed in? I don't, were you ever in a production of Coppelia? I mean, what were some of the ones that you got to do during your time as a professional dancer?
That's a wonderful question. I'm from Texas, and...
Yeah, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
What part?
Garland.
Garland.
Just outside of Dallas.
Nice, that's a nice area. I actually shot a movie out there once, a Western. Yeah, it was fun. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So,
we'll get back to that one.
Ballets. So in Texas, it's kind of hard unless you're in the Houston Ballet or Ballet Dallas or something like that. It's hard to get people to go watch ballet. So I've basically done a million renditions of the Nutcracker. I've played every role except the Mouse King. And then other than that, it was mostly mixed rep stuff. So we would do, like one of my favorite things that we got to do was work with Ballet Folklorico, which was the flamenco company. And I'm from San Antonio, so there's a lot of beautiful flamenco dancing. So we would work with them a lot. And then I just basically did whatever was available. I worked for the symphony. So sometimes I would choreograph for them and dance for their shows, but it was such a hoot to me that I never got to dance Giselle in real life, as a dancer.
Oh, we're gonna make sure that doesn't be a permanent thing.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, we're gonna get that on social media, right?
Oh, then
Yeah, that you want to dance Giselle.
Oh man, I couldn't do it now. I need a hip replacement. I wish, but Joss let me do it on national TV. It was just crazy to me. We're really geeking out here on ballet, but you know what I mean? Like, it was my favorite ballet, and I missed the dance audition. Joss actually held a dance audition because he wanted a real ballet dancer, which is so unusual. Usually they're like, oh, we'll just get a double.
How much can you fake it?
Yeah, how much can you fake it, exactly. And I missed the dance audition, and my manager somehow snuck me into the callback, and I got to read for Joss without knowing it was Joss because I didn't know what he looked like, and I was just a newbie, so
Gosh, I hope this nerd likes me.
I didn't, I mean, I was so nervous and I was very serious, as you know, I just told y'all. I dressed in my full dance costume just in case you needed to see me dance, which now I know you never do. You don't dress, when you're going to an audition, you don't dress as the character. You're supposed to let your acting do the work. But I didn't know, so I was ready to dance. And then he sent me out of the room, and I thought, well, that was it, another audition. I'm gonna throw away my sides. And he called me back in, and he said, can you just do it with an accent? I just kind of like to see it with an accent. And so I just did a British accent on the fly, and then he cast me. He cast me, and he told me later that he told the casting director, hopefully she doesn't have feet of cement because I'm casting her without knowing if she can dance. And he didn't know I was far more qualified to do the dancing part. I should have been the ballet double. I shouldn't have actually gotten the role, but it all worked out.
I got to double back, fellow Texan. You said you actually get to make a Western in Texas. That is a very rare thing at this point. What was this Western that you were in?
It was called Legend of Hell's Gate, and it was wonderful. Directed and written by a Texan, and we actually shot part of it right outside of my family home, so I got to sleep in my own bed and then go to work. It was crazy. I loved it. And I got to ride horses, which is one of my other, I love it. It was a hobby of mine for a while. And
English or Western?
Western, baby.
There we go.
Yeah.
Were you a barrel racer or something?
No, in my dreams. In my dreams, I'm a cowboy. I'm a farmer cowboy. And, but no, in real life, I'm something else. And, but when we were on set, I kept telling them that I wasn't comfortable on the horse, that they keep letting me practice. So they kept telling me, they kept letting me go back out and take more lessons. It was great.
Now you've added a role to your repertoire recently. You're now a mom.
Yes, the greatest role of my entire life. I'm a mommy twice over already. I've got 2 little girls.
So these little kids, you started from this high up.
Yes.
Are you going to start them early? Are you looking at getting them, brought into the ballet lifestyle?
Absolutely. Well, I already teach them. My daughter always asks me, Mommy, do your ballet, and then she'll do it after me. I've taught her some. I'm giving her my best stuff. Starting her young, and yeah, she's only 3, but she likes ballet along with everything. But I think she's going to be some kind of scientist because she's obsessed with volcanoes. I don't know, it's like everything it's all about volcanoes. That's what she wants to be for Halloween. If anybody has any tips about how to make a volcano costume, I need help.
I mean, she can be the volcano version of Te from Moana.
Yes, yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So these kids, there's so much stuff out there, so much stuff on TV, movies, and so on tablets. How have you decided to, filter what your kids watch and are exposed to? There's so much stuff out there. How are you managing that?
Well, my daughter loves to watch volcano shows. Guys, I'm tired of learning about volcanoes, magma, and all that. We do let her watch some TV. I'll be honest, in our experience, she has learned a lot from watching videos. So we've kind of, I'm tempted to say that we're a screen-free family because, there is so much research about how it affects your kids, and obviously, there's also a lot of content out there that's really disappointing that people try to sneak into children's material. So we are just really careful about watching it with her and asking her questions. But luckily, she's really into science and things like that. So we try to keep it to stuff like that. And then there are certain other shows that we really enjoy watching with her. She loves Do any of y'all like little Einsteins? She loves little Einsteins. She knows a lot about composers now, and I've seen every episode myself 5 times. And besides that, you know, I'm trying to decide if when and if I'm going to let her watch any of my stuff. I mean,
that was going to be my next question. I feel like the point where you let her watch Firefly is going to be earlier than the point when you let her watch Terminator.
Exactly. Honey, it's not okay to pick men up and throw them into cars.
I mean, if they really deserve it, honey,
right.
Then yes, pick them up and throw them.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a slippery slope. It's a moral dilemma. I've got some time to figure it out.
All right, we've got a line going. You guys followed instructions very, very well. Let's go for it.
I'd asked you most of the questions earlier. I forgot to ask one. I like, have you brought anything home from Firefly or the Serenity movie? Like, we know a couple, we've asked, I told you, we have Kaylee and Sean before, and they told us a couple of the things they brought home.
Anything fall off of a truck and into your closet?
You know, like Nathan took home the guns. We know that.
Yes.
Some of the weapons. Did you take anything? Or?
So the thing about it is that I had never acted before. I mean, I had done that one episode of Angel, and then I booked Firefly. So I was a real rule follower, and they told us we couldn't take anything. So I didn't take anything.
You forgot to ask Nathan?
I have nothing. Yeah, nobody. They didn't. It wasn't like, psst, don't. You know, it's okay. Just take it. Stuff it in your bag.
So it was years later, Nathan going, "Oh yeah, I got some good stuff. What'd you get?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "I didn't get anything."
Nothing. You know, but my ultimate souvenir is I actually just pulled it out when we moved rather recently, and I was going through all my scripts, which of course, you know, I keep the show scripts, but then I also have my audition pages from when I booked Firefly. And I was looking back at those and just thinking, oh my God, like, how many hours I spent, you know, holding on to those and carrying those through my audition and callback and test, and thinking back on that memory is so precious. So.
Yeah, because she was one of the baddest.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to say, I was watching one of the famous dancers, Anna Pavlova, famous ballet dancers, and I actually came across a video of you dancing, like on YouTube. It was a thing of like dancers similar to Anna Pavlova who are like as good as her. So I just wanted to.
That's a better compliment than I came up with all day so far. So thanks for
Music to my ears. I'm gonna write that in my diary.
And then my question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and what's a piece of advice that you would give your fans?
Piece of advice.
I mean, you were kind of put directly into the hands of Joss on Angel, on Firefly.
Throughout your whole life, maybe not
not even necessarily.
Not necessarily from a TV person on TV, just like through your whole life growing up. What was the best piece?
What's the kind of advice that has carried you through those weird, uncertain, strange parts of your life?
You know, I don't know that anybody has.
Or a quote. It can be a quote too.
I mean, the ultimate thing that I would teach my children and that I think is most important is just to be kind and treat others the way that you want to be treated, no matter what religion you are, or what philosophy in life you have. I feel like that one's pretty universal. I think we can all agree on that. So, and I think it can serve you. It can really, serve you through all of life's situations. So. That would be my ultimate, and then I would also say to be yourself. And I know that's kind of it can be, even for me sometimes when I'm thinking be myself. What does that even mean? Who am I? But we're always changing, and maybe being yourself is trusting that there's love, and that you can see yourself in another, and that there's that that treating others the way that you want to be treated is kind of the golden rule.
And then what's your favorite line you've ever said from any of your shows?
No power in the verse can stop me. River has some good ones.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh gosh, I'm really nervous.
Hey, look, I'm on stage with her. I'm 10 times more nervous than you are, I promise.
What's one of your favorite stories from like on the Firefly or Serenity set?
Oh man, there were so many good
Were there any
ones.
notorious pranksters? Were there, people that would ruin take after take after take after take, just busting people up laughing?
Well, we had a few really good prankers on our set. And again, I was not one of them. I'm super sincere and I'm terrible at pranks because I have nervous laughter and I cannot tell a lie. My face just gives it away. So, but Nathan is the king, of course. You knew it. And there's some really good stories, but one that involves me in particular. I didn't have a lot of lines in Firefly. They didn't burden me with many of the heavier plot points. I was sort of, left to my own devices to have some wacky cameo in a scene and do something crazy and then walk away. So it was perfect for me. And we had this one shot. It was a shot that involved the whole cast, and it was a oneer, which means that the cameraman wears the camera and he moves the camera throughout the scene and catches each person as they're saying their line. And so we had rehearsed and we set it all up, and Joss called action, and then everybody was saying their lines, and I had the very last line in the scene. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to take this moment to daydream for a minute and kind of wander off. And I waited and I thought to myself, it's been quiet for a while. Then I realized I hadn't said my line. And so way off away in one of the other parts of the ship, I heard Nathan yell, "Summer!" And I ruined the take, and so we had to start over again. And then after that, Nathan thought it would be funny to start yelling "Summer" after anybody messed up their line. And then he started
I'm sure you loved this.
Oh, I loved it, especially since I was so sincere and I was a real rule follower and I never messed up my lines, and this was just a one-time occurrence, and I was in the room by myself waiting and I didn't know. And anyway, he started doing it when I wasn't on set, and then he started doing it when I wasn't there for the day, and then he started doing it when I wasn't in, and then he started doing it when he moved on to a new show.
People are like, who is this Summer that he's
This
always
man's crazy.
angry at? This guy, Nathan,
I'm a pretty
is
nice
doing
girl.
drugs or something. What's wrong with him?
So yeah, and then one of the other funny things that happened with me and Nathan, I've told this story before, but he was there the day that I tested to play River. It was, when you go to a studio test, you have to sign the contract. 7 years, it's very serious, and it's you and 2 other people usually, and it's very intense, and I'd never done it before because I'd never even auditioned for a series regular role. And so I got there at Fox, the big, executive building, and I went to sign in, and Nathan was sitting next to the sign-in sheet. So I thought he worked there. And he was handing out waters and asking people how they were, and so we waited for hours. It was a big, long process, and Nathan came out of the room. Finally, I realized he was an actor, and I said, "No, so, how is it in there?" And he goes, "Don't worry, I'm pretty sure we're not going out for the same role." And then sure enough, I ended up getting the role, and I showed up at the table read, and there he was, and it was like the big brother I never had. Yeah, he was always so good to me, and he's the best captain we could ask for. Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
I've got to ask a little follow-up to tag onto that, because we're talking about Firefly. People always want to know, if there were more Firefly. That question you get 1,000,000 times. there are 1,000 reasons, people's schedules, that sort of thing. Just getting everybody back together would be very difficult, even though we've lost a couple members of the crew on screen in Serenity. If it were to continue, say, in animation, you've done some voiceover work, would you be into it? Would you see that as a viable way to continue the story of Firefly and Serenity on screen?
I think that might be a really smart way to keep the story going. I love a lot of the ideas that the fans have come up with for the characters and some of the fan fiction. There's a few crazy things out there.
Some of it should be burned.
Some of it should just, yeah. Anyway, I'm not even going to perpetuate some of these stories that I've heard that are just crazy about Jane and River. Anyway. I think that here's my thoughts about it. We all love it. It's all precious to us for various reasons. I think one universal reason is because it's an underdog story. It's like the ultimate underdog story because it's an underdog story, but we were also the underdogs at our network. You know, they kind of mismanaged us. They never understood us. They didn't let us do our thing, and I think that is honestly why it didn't work. So I think that, you know, our fans have kept us alive and they gave us this movie. I really believe that, you know, it's because the fans just would not accept the way that it ended. And we made this beautiful movie, and now it has a life of its own, and everybody has a relationship with it. And there's a part of me that really worries that if we tried to bring it back as it was, there would be something that just wouldn't be quite the same. And so I worry about trying to recreate it just as it was. So the idea of doing it as maybe an animated series is I think interesting. It might be...
I mean, it gives Alan something to do. You know?
Because he's not busy. No, I think it could really work. And when people often ask me, I know y'all are going to be surprised when people ask me if there's going to be any more. And and I don't know what to say except that Firefly has never followed the rules, so you never know what could happen next.
Keep the hope alive, brown coats. Next up.
Hi there. I'm one of the only people in the world that has never seen Firefly, so I don't know what your character was.
I'll be right back. There's a box set with your name on it in the exhibit hall.
And you seem like such a lovely person, but all the roles I've ever experienced, with the exception of one, you play terrible badasses and just usually the person you love to hate. And in fact, when I told my daughter that you were here, she goes, "Oh, you mean the one we hate?" So that's a testament
to hate her.
Right.
That's the thing.
Exactly. That's what I said. I said, "She's so good, though."
Thank you.
And I have a flip side question. Any chance you'll ever come back to Hallmark, where we love you?
Oh, I would love to.
Hallmark, the
Especially
channel of
that's-
eternal Christmas.
Right, and that's somewhere your daughter definitely could watch you.
I have to say that was one of my favorite jobs ever. I loved playing the Christmas elf, and I kind of wish that it was its own series because I think I missed my calling.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it really suited me, and I have to say, my family, after they watched it, they said, I think this is the role that is actually closest to your real personality. So yeah, I took one of those personality tests, and the answer came out Christmas elf. That's what I was supposed to be.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So you've played some pretty iconic roles, but I have two questions, and it's from the Arrow show. So what was it like being on that show and playing the characters that you did? Because like when it started, we didn't realize like how villainous the character was. Like it was this really normal, collected character, and then all of a sudden she was just like evil.
I was a little bit surprised when I got cast in that role. When they invited me to come be on the show, I thought I knew why. Well, of course I'm gonna get to fight, and I'm gonna get to do some great action, and then I got the script and I thought, okay, and then I went to my first wardrobe meeting, and they had these high heels and these jewels and these business suits, and I was like, I think I had the wrong room. Where are the combat boots? I'm not gonna be able to do any kicking in these. So, wow, it sounds like they're like really going crazy over there. So anyway, I felt the same way when I started on set. I wasn't very in touch with that part of myself, and I had to really build up the confidence to be a businesswoman and sit at the head of a boardroom and try to command that type of respect and to stand head to head with Steven. And then I started to really get into it and really get into it, and I started to really love it. And then finally, I didn't know in the beginning, they didn't tell me about Ravager, they didn't tell me about an alter ego, so I finally, you know, got fitted for my spandex pants, and then my dreams came true. Thank you.
Okay, and for the second part, which one of the actors or actresses was your favorite to work with on Arrow?
Emily. It's Emily Bett, yeah, she's my favorite. So sweet.
Just curious why though?
Why? I mean, have y'all met her?
I know,
so
but like personally, why do you
she's
like
so
her?
sweet and
Yeah.
fun and nice and really creative, and just really fun to be on set with.
Is she as energetic from the show as she is like in person?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to say first, congratulations on being part of the best science fiction TV show ever made. Firefly, yes. Yes, best writing ever. But although Nathan Fillion's naked butt seems to get a lot of attention, I was actually...
God knows why.
God knows, yeah. I've looked at it, but... but I really... as a writer and an actor myself, I was blown away by the depth of your performance and the fact that you were a newbie. I didn't even know that, and that just really sends me over the edge. But anyways, at the end of season 1, you could really see River's character, her brain coming back online, and I thought you brought that to life so beautifully. But I think that character was poised to really be the center of a season 2. And I'm wondering, you know, in your own mind and your own heart, what you would have wanted to do with that character, aside from killing Reavers, which is, you know, movie stuff. I understand why they did that for the movie, but it didn't have the subtlety that I think that you were headed into. So I'm just curious, if you had a season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe you'd still be on, yeah. 14, yeah, like where would you have wanted to take that character?
Thank you for that question and for your kind words about the work that happened on that show. You know, people often ask me about you know, how I prepared for that role, and over the years I've reflected on it. And I was talking about earlier, I found those 2 audition pages that Joss wrote for the test to get the role, and I look back on it now and I think, wow, I don't know if I could go back. I don't know if I can recreate that, because I think that role was the perfect role for me at that time of my life, when I came to LA not knowing how to act and just having some dream that I would somehow get cast in something. Meeting Joss, you know, not knowing it was him, doing my very first guest star, getting cast in Firefly. It was like, it was a dream come true. It was a whirlwind. I was completely unprepared for the experience, and I think that actually really served me.
Yeah.
My emotions were all over the place. I was a live wire. I was so vulnerable. I made so many mistakes. I let myself just, I threw myself into the experience, And I think it really worked. I remember there would be days where I would come to work and Nathan would be holding the script and he'd say, "You got some doozies in this one, girl. I don't know how you're gonna do it." And it felt so natural to me. I think there was a part of me that just was River. And I felt so safe and so protected by the rest of the cast and by Joss. And I really felt like I was growing through the experience and learning. And I felt like I was really on this ride and learned. So, like you said, if I could go back, I would have loved to just go slowly, just a little bit at a time, having her come out of her shell, and I wouldn't even talk about plot ideas because Joss is king, and the things that he came up with for those characters was out of control. So I would love to see what he had in mind, but I thought the relationship between River and Simon was incredible, and I would have liked to see that continue to flourish. And I did really appreciate that in the end, in Serenity, after being taken care of and all the sacrifice that the rest of the crew put into River, that she got to do her part in the end. So ultimately, that's what I would have liked to see, was for her to come into her own and take back her life, and then I would like to see her have like one of her own little ships, maybe an Etsy shop in space. I always thought that might be nice, like crafts, jewelry, something relaxing, because she's been through so much.
I love that. That's a great idea. It's like beading in space, right?
Yeah, just a needlepoint. Just something relaxing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
River Tam needlepoint. Available at your local spaceport.
Hi. What was it like to play yourself on The Big Bang Theory?
Oh man, it was a little nerve-wracking because that show. Those guys are so good at what they do. They're like the best at what they do. And I'd never done comedy before. So they used to shoot on the same lot that we shot Terminator on. And we would see them from time to time. So when I was invited to do that episode, Josh Friedman walked me over there, the creator of Terminator. He walked me over to do the table read, and I had never experienced what that was like, because in drama shows that we don't even usually get a table read, where they're still writing a script as we're working. And in comedy, it's very precise. They have to have table reads and work on the timing, and each line is crafted for timing to create the humor. And so I was shy as a mouse, and I was so nervous. And then I thought, I've got to talk to them about my strategy for doing this. So I said, I don't know what to do. And they said, well, be yourself. And I said, well, I'm not funny. And they said, that's okay, just be yourself. And I said, well, I don't want to be mean. And they said, but we need you to be funny. So I just tried to find that balance, and ultimately I just kind of gave into the moment, because those guys are so good that you don't really need to do much. You know how they say acting is reacting? So that's all you have to do, really. And then you have to try not to laugh to ruin takes, which was like a full-time job on that show. But it's funny, I always tell this story that after we were done shooting, I said my thank yous and my goodbyes, but then I kept running into the guys in real life after we were done, and it looked like I was the stalker. I ran into them at the grocery store, and I was like, I did not see you come in here. I promise. You should
have just taken the tack of, you've got to stop following me, Johnny.
Yeah, I should have turned it around.
Johnny, like, you stop following me.
Yeah, but they're really nice guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Summer.
Hello.
Father.
I just want to first start off, am I in the right position to then switch to Sean's mom?
Changement.
Am I switching
Changement.
it?
Nice.
Hold on.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
You're going right over
He's
that.
wearing his,
So,
oh.
when
Oh, you got some height there. Nice. Oh, guys, I wish I had my
Yes,
phone.
guys can learn how to do ballet too.
Thank you. That's the first time.
My question, besides just talking ballet, is more of every celebrity has some kind of charity or passion that really drives them things. And so I'm curious, what is yours that you wish people would ask you more about when it comes to these events? What charity, what thing drives you the most?
There are so many different areas, but I, in particular, one that Lena Headey turned me on to is because I'm a girl. And it is a foundation that helps fund girls going to school in countries where they don't have the opportunity, they don't have the equal right to go. So that's probably one of my favorites. My dad's a contractor. I've always loved Habitat for Humanity. That's one of my favorites. I love No Kid Hungry. That is a really amazing foundation, especially since I've had kids. It's been something that's really on my mind and that I think about all the time. So those would be my favorites. I also love Gentle Barn. If any of y'all have heard of that one, that one's wonderful for animals that have been abused.
Thank you, Summer.
Thank you.
We've got about 5 minutes left. I think we can get through, what is it, 4 of you? Yeah, we can do this, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
So hello. Everyone here knows, of course, Firefly was taken off TV way too early. So
this
was
is a
there,
fact. Total fact.
Total fact. So I was just wondering, at what point did you realize the show was bigger than you even thought at first?
I mean, did you get to see that effect before you were going to conventions and people were wanting to see you?
No, the whole thing was such a surprise to me. Because I had never acted before, I didn't know what to expect, and I do remember being on set when we started airing, and some of my fellow castmates who were very experienced kind of saw the writing on the wall that they were mismanaging us and that they really weren't promoting us as they were the other shows, and that we were kind of the underdogs from the very beginning. But I just didn't know what to expect, so I had this blind faith. And then when we were canceled, I again thought, well, it was nice being an actress for 6 months, and guess I got to find another job. And I absolutely thought that nothing else would come of it. And then this movement began with the fans and the letters being sent and the emails, and it was just incredible, and it started to build momentum. And Joss said that he was going to write something, and I got on board right away, thinking that Joss is going to make this happen. And I've later, in the past few years, heard my castmates saying again that they didn't think anything would come of it because they were so experienced. They knew how hard it is to get a show made in the first place, so they didn't have much hope, but I got on board right away. And it was after the show that I went to my first convention, and I got my passport to go to England for my first convention. I'd never been overseas. I didn't have a passport. And Joss tried to explain it to me, what conventions were like, and you just can't explain them. I could not believe it. I was just blown over by the love, by the devotion, by the energy and the enthusiasm and the determination that the fans had to bring it back. And I just have to say, it's just such an honor and such a privilege to be part of this family, because most actors don't even get to experience this. I mean, they experience the love of people who watch their shows, but they don't get to experience this kind of relationship that we have here. I'm just so grateful. It's such an honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're technically at time, but I don't want to cut off the 3 of you. If you think, can we rapid fire through the 3 of you just so that we can get everybody in the line?
Oh.
Can we do this?
Sure. My question was, what's the biggest change you've seen in the industry since you started?
Man. Okay, my favorite one, this is just random, but When I first started acting, I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have a computer. I barely had a cell phone. I was very out there. And every time I got an audition, I would have to drive to my agency to pick up the script. I didn't even have a fax machine, so it was a big deal when I got a fax machine and I would get my audition pages faxed to me so that I could just learn them without having to drive down to my agency sometimes several times a day. So that's my favorite one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. You mentioned that you were a rule follower doing Firefly, but how much of like River was you and how much was Joss scripted, like the crazy things you did? Because I think my favorite one was when you're lying on top of the coffin and Pooch's like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And you're like, I'm quite comfortable, thank you.
Well, you know, Joss, more than any other writer I've ever worked for, you don't change any of the lines. You don't even change. You don't even change it. You don't ask. You don't need to ask because it's so well written. So, you know, I would say the mannerisms and some of the, especially the physicality of it was me, but everything that's on the page is 100% Joss's boss.
Thank you.
Last one, I've got something to wrap us up with.
All right, I came in a little bit late, so I'm not sure if this question was already asked, but...
We'll find a version of it that hasn't. Go for it.
Well, if Terminator continued, how differently would you have played the human Cameron as opposed to the cyborg Cameron?
Well, you know, we were going to be switching back and forth in the third season. I was going to be playing both characters, so I was very, very excited about that. I think as an actor, that was one of my favorite experiences, was my episode of doing both. Allison from Palmdale, I played, you know, I was playing both sides, and that was just, I mean, that's like a dream for an actor. I loved it. I don't know exactly where it was going to go. I know that Allison and John had quite a backstory, but I don't exactly know where it would have gone. That's one of the reasons that it was so hard to leave that show, because we had so much story left to tell. So I'm sorry for that. A lot of you have come up to me and said, I just hate the way that show ended, and I'm right there with you.
Well, no, I loved the last episode. I just wish it didn't stop there.
No, thank you.
Well, I've got one last one for you before we wrap up. You were in an animated movie, Batman, Superman, Apocalypse. You played a young lady named Kara that I think a lot of us are yet more familiar with than we have been. You worked on that with voice director Andrea Romano, legend among legends. In case the name doesn't ring a bell, you've probably seen Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League, Voltron, The Legend of Korra. What is this woman like to work with?
She's like an angel. She's like a therapist. I went in there, you know, like I was telling you in the beginning, I was quite shy about expressing myself, and actually my first ever acting class was just a class for adults. I was still a teenager, I was like 16, but it was a class for adults who had trouble speaking in public. And so I went from that to acting to doing voice work. And when I got in the room with Andrea, she pulled things out of me that I didn't think I could do. You know, I was a little stiff in the beginning, a little, you know, controlling. It was hard for me to let certain things out. And she is a legend, like you said. My experience with her was a joy, and she's a one of a kind. I loved her, and the experience of doing the voice acting was a real learning lesson for me. I couldn't lean on my physicality like I usually do with all my other characters. So by the end of the sessions are really long, and you're in that room just working it and trying it this way and trying it that way. And by the end, I felt kind of exhilarated, you know, because it did almost feel like therapy, because she was pulling stuff out of me. And by the end, I was kind of addicted to doing voice acting. It was really great. I loved it.
Well, speaking of therapeutic, speaking of drawing emotions out and everything, you've done a bunch of these conventions, and I'm sure that you've had loads of people come up to you with stories of what watching River go through the processing of trauma, the processing of abuse that she, was working through on that show, and what that has done for people. And not betraying the confidences of the stories that people tell you, but what has it been like getting this kind of outpouring of love and support from these people who you couldn't possibly imagine what that show, what other shows, what other things you've done have meant to people? What's that experience been like for you coming to these shows?
It's such an honor. One thing that I love sharing with people is when they say, you're our family show, or you're my comfort show. I had those movies with my sisters from when we were kids, and we were just together a few weeks ago, and it's like we have our own language. We'll start having a normal conversation, and then all of a sudden somebody will say something, and then it'll turn into a quote from some movie from 1994 that the three of us have watched 2,000 times together.
As if.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a comfort. So when I'm meeting fans and they're saying, you got me through when I was in the hospital. You got me through when I was bedridden. You got me through when I was going through a depression. I get that because I had those too, and it's a precious thing. It's an honor, and I'm so grateful to all of you for supporting me through my dreams and giving me a place to experience all of this, to see the world. I've gone all over the place, getting to meet all of you, and I'm really, really grateful. I don't take it for granted. I have so much love for you. So thank you.
I have 3 little favors that all of you out here can do. You're still here for the rest of the day, yeah? Just a little bit?
Yes, for a little bit longer.
You're here for a little bit longer.
I'm gonna go back to the table one more time.
Whether you have seen Summer or not, if you can all just bum rush the exhibit hall and get up there and get in line to see her, show her some love before she gets out of here. If you could do that for me, that's favor 1. Favor 2, we have an amazing crew, including our magnificent sign language interpreter who's been with us the whole weekend. We can get a round of applause for our crew. And finally, this is it. This is the last big panel in this room here for Megacon Tampa Bay. Everybody have fun? Yeah! Okay. Then that final favor that I asked, can we really blow the roof off one last time for Summer Glau? We will see you upstairs.